Searching for Gigantoventure base. A very long time ago. A very long time ago, Leo and I explored outwards in the region known as Fish Cliff. Previously, we had established a main base, Epic Fail Base, and a base at the Potion Tree. Epic Fail Base had since fallen into disrepair, and the Potion Tree was hardly used. The left region was completely mapped. Aside from the main base and Hell's Maze, little of the right region had been explored, so we set out through the bush towards Hell's Maze, searching for potential base material. A small, accessible bush region was named Adventure Base. This served well as a base but didn't quite live up to the standard we had hoped for, that standard being slightly better than main base. I spotted a huge, towering bush which could have made excellent base material. Leo named it Gigantobase. I headed off along the bush while Leo attempted to penetrate Gigantobase. A few minutes later, he reported back, telling me that the base was unsuitable due to the large quantity of thorns inside. We were almost prepared to give up when we located Gigantoventure base. The base was absolutely perfect in every way. It was large. It was accessible. There were no thorny plants inside. There was plenty of seating. We simply had to develop Gigantoventure base. There was only one slight problem. In order to fetch resources for the base's development, we had to leave the base. And to leave the base, we needed an opening that allowed something inside to move outside. The entrance we had used was one way, we could only enter through it, not exit. However, a quick search revealed another exit, the hole in the wall with a single branch poking out through the otherwise even surface. We slid down the branch and escaped, only to find out that we had to go back home. The plans for Gigantoventure base were postponed to the next Fish Cliff trip. The next time we went to Fish Cliff was a couple of months later, by which point we had all but forgotten about the distant Gigantoventure base. The geography of the right region remained a mystery. But that is far from being the end of the story. In fact, it is far from being the beginning. A very, very long time ago. A very, very long time ago in Fish Cliff, Leo and I were climbing the Potion Tree. Leo had managed to get off the tree itself and onto the cluster of bamboo stalks next to it, which he was precariously walking along. The bamboo was mixed with another nearby bush, which he began to sink into. I wanted to help him, of course, but was hesitant to walk on such a seemingly insubstantial surface. However, Leo proved skillful enough to escape the sinking leaf trap, call it quick laugh. No, on his own. He then advanced through the bamboo, pushing it over as he did so. He continued to move onwards until the now horizontal bamboo was touching the edge of main base, forming a sort of bridge, which he crossed. The moment he stepped off the bridge, it sprang back to a vertical position, cutting off the link between the main base and the bamboo. I then decided to cross as well. I briefly got stuck but escaped and crossed successfully. We decided to name it Yellow Cross, after the distinctive color of the bamboo. We decided to repeatedly cross on all our visits to Fish Cliff so that the bamboo would eventually remain in the bridge shape. As with Gigantoventure base later, we never returned to the spot until very recently. The 6th of June, 2020. Several years later, Sasha and I were walking around in Fish Cliff. By that point, the entirety of Fish Cliff had been mapped. However, as we returned from Hell's Maze, I realized something was missing: Gigantoventure base. Hell's Maze led almost directly to main base, without anything in between. The only base we could locate was the now completely overgrown Gigantobase. There was no sign of Adventure Base or Gigantoventure Base. We decided to perform a careful search of the entire cliff, both regions, left and right. On this unrecorded date, we stayed near to the potion tree and searched there. A map was drawn up when I returned home of the search regions. Search regions were planned. The 20th of June, 2020. Transcription. Yeah. With Sasha in Fish Cliff. Resuming to look for Gigantoventure Base. Stopped at Potion Tree. Going to try make Yellow Cross accessible. The 27th of December, 2020. Written on the 28th of December, 2020. Old archive message for missing images. Image missing, transcription follows. I haven't written in a long time, but at last yesterday we did a major attack on the area and nearly completed step 1 to restore Yellow Cross. It is step 1 of my plan that I came up with yesterday. Then I worked together with Sasha, Leo, Toa and Seth to start doing it. Sasha and I had been puzzling over it for a while, several months in fact. The revelation happened when I went behind the potion tree and saw that the stalks were vertical. I'll explain in a diagram. Diagram is missing. Originally, I thought that the bush was horizontal and the reason you couldn't stand on it was because the stalks were spaced out. The solution I came up with was to chuck logs on it to compact it and fill up the gaps. Unfortunately, Sasha and I were not enough people to collect the amount of logs we needed, so the plan never happened. Yesterday, I went behind the potion tree and saw that the stalks were vertical. I realized this was the actual reason why it was impossible to stand on, from above. Vertical stalks have very little surface area to support anything above them. I realized to get to the entrance, we had to make a platform by bending the stalks over. Seth and I held the sticks in place in a bent position while Sasha walked on top of them to try and get them in place. After that Leo came along, we exchanged memories, including me getting stuck, and he decided the stalks would stay in position if we used logs to build up the platform. Remaining transcription. He then mentioned that it was the other bush and that it happened on the other side of the fence. We did try to go there to get an extra dimension for the project. This failed, as the fence was high, and we had nowhere near enough logs to build a staircase over it. Still, it was another dimension we could go into to collect logs. In fact, it was on our first trip there that Leo found the jackpot log, a huge log which forms the core of the platform. Shortly after, he also discovered the long log which stretches all the way from one end of the bush to the other and is on the other side of the jackpot log. After a few minutes of getting stuck in the base, I went over to see how it was going and found that over half was done. That was when session 1 ended, and just before we left, we tested the strength and found our platform can hold 85 kilograms. I estimate that we will be on to Yellow Cross itself in 1 or 2 sessions once the platform is complete. The next session is on New Year's Eve. The 31st of December, 2020. This date has been written in the notes, but no entry exists under it. The Yellow Cross incident or the Gigantoventure base search is never brought up again. The following has been reconstructed from my very limited memory of the events. Sasha and I, possibly also Leo, attended this session. We climbed the Tree of Wisdom, in which I discovered that Fish Cliff sits atop a set of Dwarpshan lines. These sometimes open up, creating new land in between their edges, which blends seamlessly into the rest of the land around it. Sometimes, even more worryingly, 2 Dwarpshan lines move towards each other, consuming the land in between. They eventually merge into one line. This line may eventually open, reviving the lost land inside. I also saw a section of land which had been created this way between the old era and the time of the search, as well as the locations of several other Verption lines, which I added to the map. Interestingly, one of these just so happens to sit on top of the spot where I believed Gigantoventure base to have once stood. There is therefore no way that we can now search for the base. Its fate is certain. The base, and the land on which it sat, has now been consumed by the Verption lines. There it will lie, buried under the surface of time, until, perhaps in the distant future, perhaps well after my lifetime, the universe will choose to be merciful and release Gigantoventure base from its eternal prison to be explored by future generations.